Hello, everybody, and welcome to the White Hatter News Show. I'm Brandon.
I'm Darren.
Let's get into some news topics, shall we?
In the news.
First news up is Apple's latest security warning. So Apple last week launched a emergency update fix for a critical vulnerability in iPhones, iPads, and such that basically a hacker could, and apparently in the report, people were actively exploiting this feature to take control over an iPhone through various complex hacking strategies. But an issue now has been sent, so if you have an Apple device, update.
Yeah, I mean, I'm an Apple fanboy, as you know, and most of the viewers been watching us know. I'm an Apple fanboy, and I've got my Apple product set up to automatic download, right, of those types of things. But yeah, I mean, a couple things. If you haven't done it, if you haven't got an automatic update, do it immediately to plug the vulnerability. But once again, was this a bounty? Do you know?
It was according to Apple, it was a. They didn't describe how and who this became prevalent.
But once they were aware of it, they moved quickly to get a fix put in place.
Yeah.
That's one of the good things about Apple is that when issues such as this are brought to their attention, they're pretty good at quickly patching things up, right?
Yeah, it could have been a bounty, and maybe a part of the bounty agreement was there was no further disclosure. Who knows?
Who knows?
But
get them updated. Everything from your laptops to your desktops to your mobile devices, right? Including iPads, iPhones, all that kind of stuff. Get it updated. Yeah, for sure.
Other big news was
TikTok on the clock.
Who
sings that song?
That was Cat Dollar Sign.
Yeah. Oh God. Is that Kesha?
TikTok in-app browser could be keylogging and privacy analysis warned. So this was a news topic discussing TikTok's in-app browser.
It was interesting. The researchers that did this, not only did they look at TikTok, but they looked at all of the meta platforms as well. So Facebook and Instagram. And what they found was that the other platforms were doing the same thing, but not to the degree that TikTok was, right? Like this was extremely it was covert. It was there, and TikTok is now pushed back publicly to say, hey, listen, they're not keystroke logging anything you're doing. Yeah, then why do you have the code in there, right? Like, then why do you have the code? I believe
their analysis was just general user tracking.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, I mean, the issue with TikTok has consistently been, and don't get me wrong, there's some cool stuff that happens on TikTok. We don't recommend it for those under the age of 16. But who's it owned by? It's owned by ByteDance, right?
ByteDance and Oracle.
Right.
Oracle has the primary stake in North America.
Correct. However, ByteDance is because it's owned by a Chinese business owner. The fear has always been that China would have access because they have that written within their constitution that they can access. So but
China can just buy from data brokers in the U.S. anyway.
I get it, but
China has something to do it anyway. So really, it's irrelevant.
Is it?
Yeah.
Is it irrelevant that they got a keystroke logger on your device? So one of the things that I say is a lot of parents, like on the kids' devices, probably not such a big deal. The concern here is that, a lot of parents now, they'll pair their phone to their kid's TikTok account to allow them to have parental overwatch to see what's going on. The concern is that if you put it on your parent's device, now everything you're doing on your device could be keystroke logged.
In the TikTok
correct
built-in browser. So to describe further, so the in-app browser, so for example, let's say you open a link in TikTok somehow.
Yeah, it goes to Instagram as a good example.
And then you will get a pop-up typically on your phone that says open link.
Yes.
Well, what some apps will do is they will open the link in their own web browser.
Correct.
So traditionally on, let's say, a computer, you click a link, it opens up your primary browser, be it Chrome or Firefox or Safari.
Right.
Well, app developers can sometimes make their own browsers, which may not necessarily have the robust security privacy details as your mainstream Safaris and Googles do.
Right. So where I was going with this, though, is that for parents, if possible, rather than putting it on your primary device, maybe where you do all your shopping or using credit cards and all that kind of stuff, if you can put the pairing app on a secondary older device.
I think that's too complicated.
Is it?
Yeah, just don't use TikTok's in-app browser.
Yeah, but how many people know that?
How many people are going to know to use a different device?
Well, if we bring it to their attention, that maybe
bring it
they
to
would.
attention. Just don't use TikTok's in-app browser.
Yeah.
Wait, if you click a link on TikTok, open it in your Safari or Chrome browser instead.
Yeah.
I don't understand what you're trying to get at.
What I'm getting at is I'm getting more and more concerned. I never used to be over the fact that TikTok is doing a lot of stuff that they have not disclosed. And when it does get discovered, they push back saying, well, we're not collecting the data. Well, then,
how long has Facebook done that?
Yeah, but we've kind of known that for a long time. And TikTok has been saying for years that they're not doing this, they're not doing it, they're not doing it. And then all of a sudden, researchers are finding that they are doing it. That's the concern.
I don't think TikTok's ever disclosed that they're collecting keystrokes. No, and
that's the issue.
And they're still right now claiming they're not collecting the data.
Yeah. Well,
although the app has the ability to do that, which in theory, any app you install can have the ability to record what you're doing.
I get where you're going. I mean, any free app you're downloading is collecting data on what it is you're doing on your device, right? Like that's just a given. That's something that we have to understand, because with the convenience comes the issue surrounding risk to our privacy, right? Mm-hmm. So I get that. It's just, TikTok, and because of who owns it and what's going on with the data, it's becoming more of a privacy security issue, in my opinion. That's all.
They all do the same thing,
regardless
of where they are. And then with big, massive data brokers, doesn't matter where you are. If you have enough money, you just buy everyone's data. Again, referring to John Oliver's wonderful segment on U.S. Congress people and buying their data.
Yeah, I know. I hope he releases that one day.
I know.
That will be amazing to watch.
That was a great show segment, and it really got people to think about data brokers. Yeah. And again, anyone can buy that stuff. So even though, let's say there's a malicious entity out there, China, United States, whoever it is, they don't need to use these apps. They go to private companies who just buy data, and they buy data from them, and they get the data that way.
But if they want to do it directly without going to a third party, well, then this would be the way to do it.
But again, using TikTok's in-app browser is a poor way of doing it, because you're not going to get a lot of people logging in necessarily to all their stuff through the TikTok in-app browser. To use the in-app browser takes a couple steps to get there. It'd be easier to develop a plugin for your browser that keylogs you. That'd be way easier as an attack vector. But
interesting times. Again, I'm becoming more and more concerned over TikTok. I really am. So, but that's just my feeling.
I'd be concerned over any social media.
True. Anything free. I mean,
even paid.
We're not their customer. We're their inventory.
Even paid.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, there have been tons of paid companies that have had data breaches, and it's been shown that they collect way too much information, or they sell you their information to offload extra costs.
God.
So
have you had a coffee this morning or something?
No.
You're like lit right now. Holy crow.
I would say just don't use TikTok's in-app browser or Facebook's browser. In-app browser.
Or put it on a secondary phone.
Sure.
That's another option.
If you want to do that.
I know some people who do.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
But if you're concerned about the key logging, just don't use the in-app browser.
Yeah. Well, or put it on a second device.
Are you saying just the parental monitoring is all on just one device, so it's all one-stop shop?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, that would make sense to make things easier. So, for example, for parents and caregivers, all they do is device tracking, content filtering is all on one device.
If that's what it is, these are things that I talked about on our podcast on the issues surrounding monitoring and filtering. So, just something to think about.
Mm-hmm. Amazon Ring vulnerabilities. So,
didn't we talk about Amazon last week too?
Amazon,
over the fact they bought Roomba.
I saw a great video the other day where an individual is looking at all the properties Amazon owns in different markets, and they own
actual property, like acreages in their houses and buildings. Is that what
assets,
you're talking?
Virtual or actual land.
Okay.
Whole Foods would be one. So like Amazon has stake in the food market,
right,
with Whole Foods, video market with Prime. So they have an entity in almost every market.
Right.
So Amazon is going to be a popular topic.
The Uber Lord.
Yeah, getting there.
What Amazon, was it in Resident Evil? What was the name of the Uber Lord there? They were...
that was the Umbrella Corporation.
The Umbrella Corporation.
Yeah.
Right?
Amazon. Not the latest TV show. The original.
Yeah, they got a series going on right now. Right?
Yeah.
You ever seen that? What?
Don't get me started.
I'm going to get you started. What's going on?
It's just a bad show.
Yeah, I'll admit
it's
that.
Just a
I
bad
watched
show.
the first one. I went, This is really dumb. Like
It's a bad show.
Yeah. All right.
Anyways,
Amazon.
join us
Uber
on
Lord.
our TV show review show.
Yeah, exactly. So what's going on
Amazon
with
Ring
this?
vulnerability targeting Android phones. So there was a particular malicious program.
What kind of phones?
Android.
Yeah. Not
And
Not
Apple had
Just
a
saying.
vulnerability in 1 point something billion devices.
Just saying. They fixed it.
Fair. So there was a malicious program going around for Android devices that
Android.
it would look for your Ring app, and there was a vulnerability where it's called your token, which is your login credentials that you don't have to log in every time. This malicious program would see that, steal it, log into your Ring
Cloud account,
platform.
yeah.
A lot of people have their videos accessible through the cloud interface,
Right.
and it would access your camera feeds that way. A little complicated, but
Doable.
doable. And Ring has fixed the leaky issue with the token. But I guess this goes into the whole discussion around the issue of cloud services, cloud security, and is it really a good idea or not?
Well, I mean, the cloud in most cases is very secure, but if somebody accesses your device and allows you to get into your credentials, well, then they have, which is maybe a type of, that's what phishing is all about, right? Then they have your credentials to access the cloud account, right?
I mean, it's secure, assuming the app you're using is secure.
Correct. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Interesting. Uber Lord, the Umbrella Corp, Amazon. You see, there's sorry, just before we go on, you know how Amazon, I think it was Amazon, they own the company, was it Ring again? They were going to put out that mobile robot where it flies around and monitor your home.
Yes, that was Ring.
Yeah. You see, there's another company that's kind of released their own version of it as well, right? Like it's the same thing. It's a drone, right? Kind of thing. It's very interesting. Very interesting. I still want one. I want one to pop up behind us. I remember a couple of years ago, you and your partner, when you were doing a show, you talked about the old days where they had this cartoon robot that would pop up and kind of fly around and stuff. Do you remember what that was? Like,
No, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, you do.
I don't.
Yeah, it was kind of like your partner did it on her show where she talked about the old Reboot or something. Was it Reboot or you got her a poster where there were these old shows about digital and they had a robot. The robot was their primary.
Bob the Guardian bot?
Yeah, that's it.
Oh.
That's it.
Yeah.
Now you remember, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes Bob the Guardian would fly around, right? Yeah, okay. Now do you understand?
Yeah.
Okay, there you go.
Okay.
All right, Boomer. Go ahead, say it.
No, I'm good.
All right.
Last news topic is Australia's top court.
Australia. They're part of the
rules-
Commonwealth. People don't know that.
True.
They're a part of the Commonwealth. So is Canada.
Australia's top court rules Google isn't a publisher. So the background on this story is there was an individual who found themselves in a defamation case. So there was a website basically defaming them, saying lies, essentially. And
That doesn't happen on the internet.
I know, go figure. And they roped Google into the suit because they claimed Google had linked to this defamatory website, and therefore Google is also liable as a publisher of the content.
Okay, so it's kind of like what people are doing in the United States under the safe harbors, where if they're a site like Facebook or TikTok or Meta, and somebody publishes something on their site, they have Section 230 protection that prevents them from being sued by third parties for content that is posted by other people.
Yeah, because essentially they didn't have the company
Right.
itself didn't have malicious intent.
Right.
It just
Right.
someone who happened to use their platform
Right.
was having malicious intent.
Right.
So I actually don't know what Australia's equivalent to safe harbor is. I'm sure they have something around that, but this definitely kind of confirms that in that the top court claimed that, Google was not liable. Now, originally, in the original court ruling, before it was appealed, the judge was like, yeah, Google is liable, which is interesting. Google obviously was like, no, we're not.
Uh-oh, let's fight this.
And they dropped all their money and lawyers on this, and basically they won, and essentially Google was found not to be a publisher of the content. They just linked to it.
So it says Australia's High Court has ruled. So that's probably because my next question was going to be, do you think Australia is going to appeal this? And apparently it says they're Australia's highest court, which is probably their Supreme Court. That's the highest you can probably go.
Well, the Australia High Court, I actually don't know. Australia might have a Supreme Court.
That's a good question, right?
But
they probably do.
At least this is an appeals process. So the lower level court ruled in favor of the plaintiff, and then Google appealed it basically to the next court. So I don't know if it goes any higher than that.
Right.
I'm not as familiar with Australia's court structure. I mean, as a Commonwealth, I was
so
surprised.
How does that apply here to Canada? It's great in Australia. What does that mean here in Canada?
I think it just mirrors similar to the Section 230 and how we interpret search engines and content providers on the internet.
I mean, because Australia is a Commonwealth, I mean, our courts do look to other Commonwealth countries when it comes to court decisions if we've never visited it here in Canada legally. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it would be interesting. I mean, you know my feeling on this. You don't agree with me, but I do think to a degree that some of these internet service providers, social media vendors, they should be held accountable for some of the stuff that they're allowing to be published on their sites. Now, your comment has always been, yeah, but how are they going to be able to monitor the billions and billions and billions of data sets that come into these places every single day? And my answer is, figure it out. Yeah, you're making billions of dollars, so figure it out.
Yeah, but that would also put the onus on every small business that has a forum and somebody posts a comment on something or
that's one of the reasons why I recommend to small businesses as a part of our training. Listen, if you're going to have a website that allows people to interact and post things publicly, make sure you have a moderator, right? Because the job of the moderator is to ensure that things are being posted are within policy, right?
Yeah, but moderators can't, depending on how big your site is, you can't have a moderator see everything all the time.
That's a decision that you're going to have to make, right? Like, it's just.
But you deploy an artificial intelligence Google does.
I'm getting sick and tired, to be quite honest, of these. You got me going. Now I'm lit. I'm getting sick and tired of these social media vendors and ISPs. And by the way, we're doing something on that from a project standpoint. But I'm getting sick and tired of them hiding behind the fact that they're saying, hey, listen, we can't be held accountable for what people are posting on our sites, even when we bring it to their attention that what they're posting is in clear violation of their terms of service. Like, you can't have it both ways.
This story is a little different because Google's just linking, right? Google is spidering the internet, pulling up links to places that exist. So it's not as if this was a Google-owned platform that somebody posts defamatory content on.
Yeah, so
Google just happened to link to that website.
Let's game this out. Bring that to the attention of Google. Or I post it and Google links to it. I then bring to the attention of Google, hey, listen, just to let you know, somebody has linked this on your platform. You may want to decouple that link. And they refuse to do that.
I do believe Google has policies around that kind of stuff, much like sexual abuse material, right? Google has policies. Even in this case, Google had claimed that, they actually, when they were brought aware of this link, they did remove it from their search engine, much like anyone.
Okay.
Yeah, so Google has policies on what can and cannot be allowed.
All right. So that kind of makes me happier. At least they did something about it. It's my issue is when they are being willfully blind over issues, right, that are brought to their attention and they do nothing about it, saying, hey, listen, it's not our problem, right? We are not held responsible for what people post from third parties on our websites, and we're not liable for it. Well, that's just wrong. They should be under certain circumstances. And in fact, I think it's in Texas right now. There's a pretty big decision that was just made at their Supreme Court level down there that actually found, I forget which platform it was right now. Something tells me it was Snapchat, or no, it was Omegle actually, where there's a big case where Omegle tried to hide behind the 230 Safe Harbors Act in the United States. And the plaintiffs in the matter attacked it from a different perspective, and the court came back and said, no, Omegle, you can't use 230 to hide behind because of this. And as a result of that, they were found guilty, right? So it's very interesting. So we're starting to see.
The problem is, then you'll see companies that, once you have a case example like that, then you'll see companies shift their operations elsewhere into a country that's going to be more accepting of their practices.
Right.
So...
Yeah, I get it.
Right?
Yeah, I get it. I mean, if you put certain barriers in place in North America, Canada, United States, where companies can't do what it is they're doing to make their shareholders billions and billions of dollars. Does that mean that they'll move their operation offshore to another country where U.S. or Canadian law can't touch them? Probably. Right?
Yeah,
like we see that happening now with certain sites, right? Where that's exactly what they've done, where they've moved their servers to another country that Canadian or American law just don't fulfill, right?
Yeah.
Now, what's interesting, however, is that some of those sites will immediately, they are no longer, can they be indexed by Google is a good example, right? Like Google has de-indexed or de-indexed specific sites, like really good example, The Dirty, right? Where they de-indexed it now so that you can't get to it from Google.
Right. But if you have a large platform, let's say, for example, TikTok's held liable for something somewhere in a state in the United States.
Right.
Right. Well, then TikTok is such a large platform that regardless if they move elsewhere out of country, it's not going to matter if Google de-indexes them.
Well, good question. I spoke to a Canadian lawyer on this, and he said it's different if they have a brick and mortar location in the country.
Yep.
Right? If they have a brick and mortar location in the country, even if they've moved their server to another country, you can still go after them because they have a brick and mortar in that specific country, right? So,
but again, they just remove their brick and mortar and they hire people probably at a cheaper rate anyways out of country. Yeah. And then wouldn't that just be a better operation anyways? Because you hire people at a lesser cost.
Yeah. It's so very interesting, right? To see, you try to deal with an issue and then very quickly these vendors and shareholders look for another way to get around it, right? So, because in the end, it all comes down to the mighty dollar. But if we're going to expect change and accountability, we have to hit these companies where it hurts, which is in their pocketbooks.
Australia's had a few interesting cases. I mean, they've talked about...
They're pretty progressive, actually.
They talked about banning certain websites from their internet connections. Yeah. And then I come out and think, well, what about Starlink, right? Starlink doesn't necessarily have brick and mortar locations. It's internet in the sky.
Right.
So although a country may ban physically a connection on their network.
That's a good point, right? Yeah. Like what's happening in, say, Russia and China with the Great Chinese Digital Wall. If all of a sudden their people are getting access to Skylink.
Well, I guess the country... Well,
Starlink, Skylink.
China would just ban the sale and import of the dongles necessary.
Yeah, but
Australia could do the same thing,
right.
But then you just import it elsewhere, right? There'll be a black market for that.
Right. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
All these laws, right? Like and seeing how the criminal codes in countries are trying to stay current and updated to hold people accountable and not accountable. I mean, especially when it comes to privacy. And, one of our favorite privacy lawyers just did another YouTube today over the issues of copyright in Canada and what's going on in this country, right? So very, very, very interesting.
Definitely. But stay tuned for more.
Yeah,
as
for sure.
We'll see each little country have their own particular little laws that just make the internet that much more complicated.
So, I'm Darren.
I'm Brandon. Thank you all so much, and we'll see you all next time.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.